Good evening, everyone. Those of you in the room and online, I'm Molly Faulk-Klopp. I'm the board chair of Trinity Center, Walnut Creek, and I'm your moderator for this community forum. The Walnut Creek Homeless Task Force sponsors these periodic public conversations about actions that are being taken to address homelessness. And tonight, we'll be focusing on the great work being done by the Walnut Creek Police Department. So just a couple of logistics. Again, we are in person and online. Online, everybody has been muted and you will not see your pictures, so we have good streaming. If you have questions, you'll be typing them in the Q&A section, and we will be recording this, or we are recording this session, so just to be notified. So in looking at our agenda, we'll start off with a welcome from our wonderful Mayor, Matt, who is here to support our great work, Mayor Francois. Then we're going to hear from some of our community resources agencies who are members of the task force and are here tonight to talk about the great work that they do. But we're going to spend most of our time with the Walnut Creek Homeless Outreach Program team from the Walnut Creek Police Department. We'll have Q&As and a chance to answer your questions. And so hopefully that will give everyone the information that they need. So thank you all for being here. So Mayor Francois.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Molly, and thank you everyone for being here or tuning in by Zoom. I'm very happy to see the return of the Community Forum on Homelessness in person. And to those of you into the council chamber and tuning in by Zoom, welcome. We all know how challenging these past few years have been, and among those most impacted have been our unhoused community. I'm proud of the important work that this task force has kept doing during this pandemic. I'm also proud of the partnership and the work that the city and my council colleagues have done and the commitment that we've made to help the homeless in our community. I'm happy to report, as Molly pointed out, that the city's homeless outreach program is back in action, and we're excited to introduce our HOP team to you this evening. As Molly also pointed out, we'll have time for questions and answers. For those in the chamber, we'll provide cards for you to write your questions, and our team will gather them and share them with our moderator. And for those watching remotely, you can put your questions directly into the Q&A box on Zoom. I know we'll all come away from this forum with a new understanding and new ideas, and I'm excited about that. And I'm encouraged about it. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to Molly, and thank you for having me here today.
I have to remember to turn on my mic. Thank you for being here. So I'd first like to welcome the amazing Donna Colombo, founding member and co-chair of the current Homelessness Task Force.
Thank you, Molly. I don't know about amazing, but thank you for that nice intro. So good evening, everyone. We are so pleased to host our 5th forum on homelessness with our featured speaker of the Walnut Creek Police Department, Sergeant Silva, and his team. With me tonight, you may not see them, but my co-facilitator, Mark Newsome, I believe is in chambers, and Lisa Andrews, our communications lead, is online. Lisa has been a fabulous member of the task force, hosting, preparing all of these forums. So thank you, Lisa. Our mission and our vision, as you can see on screen, is also on our website. And I encourage you to visit our website. It's WC I looked at the Gmail account. It's wchomelesstaskforce.org, and you will see our vision and our mission. Next slide, please. So the task force brings together members of the City of Walnut Creek, the police department, the members of Contra Costa County's Health, Housing, and Homeless Services, local businesses, nonprofit, charitable, and faith-based organizations, as well as the community at large. I know at times it can seem like no one is doing anything, but I assure you, there are a lot of people that are involved, a lot of caring people. The task force has a number of committees, as you can see on the screen. And we work in these committees in order to develop research best practices, we develop communications, we work on safety net projects, and to reduce the negative impact of homelessness on the community. And we also work on longer term projects, such as affordable permanent supportive housing. And you may have heard we have a couple of projects in that area. One is a micro home village at Grace Presbyterian in Walnut Creek. We meet monthly on the first Wednesday of each month at 2 p.m. We are currently meeting virtually. We do hope to be back face-to-face at some point in the future. We encourage and we invite. We would love to see you attend our meetings. You can also visit our website and find the link for the virtual meetings on our website. And again, that's wchomelesstaskforce.org. Thank you, Molly.
Thanks, Donna. Next up is Shelby Ferguson. She is the Continuum Administrator for the Contra Costa Health Services Department's Health, Housing, and Homeless Services Division. Welcome, Shelby.
Thanks, Molly. Thanks, everyone, for having me. Like I said, I'm Shelby Ferguson. I'm the Continuum of Care Administrator with Contra Costa Health, Housing, and Homeless Services, or H3. We are a division within the County Health Department. We help integrate housing and homeless services within our community and across our health system. We coordinate housing and services with our local governments, cities, and our local community. Next slide, please. I wanted to give you all a couple ways that you can access our system. If you don't know already, there's 3 ways you can access our homeless system of care. And you can do this with your community members if anyone needs access to our system. We have our call, which is 211. Anyone call 211 24/7. That's available for people who might be at risk of losing their housing, already homeless, or just need resources. One of our other access points is our care centers. We have 2 care centers, one located in Walnut Creek, Trinity Center, which you'll be hearing from, as well as GRIP in Richmond. Those are drop-in daytime centers, open weekdays with limited weekend hours at the Richmond location. That's for people who are literally homeless or people who might be at risk if they want to come in and get meals, showers, laundry, get their mail, just those basic needs services, as well as some case management. And then our third access point is our core teams, which you'll be hearing more about from my colleague, Lisa Thomas. Those are our mobile outreach teams. They go and meet people where they're at in our community, many people who are unsheltered or living in encampments especially. They're available 7 days a week. To access one of our core teams, you can call 211 and you can press 3. That gets you to our dispatch line. And dispatch is available typically Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. You're welcome to leave messages and they'll definitely call you back within 24 hours. And that's really focused for people who are unsheltered in our community to help them come inside. Thanks, Molly.
Great work, thank you. Next up, Lisa Thomas of the county's core program.
Hi, I'm Lisa Thomas, and I'm the Core Outreach Coordinator for Homeless Programs. Coordinated Outreach Referral Engagement is what CORE stands for. We work to engage and stabilize homeless individuals that are living outside through continuing outreaching and connecting them with resources and other agencies, as well as working side by side with the Walnut Creek HOP team. Walnut Creek also has their individual own core team that is just stationed for Walnut Creek. And our goal is to help the unhoused get into shelter as well as into permanent supported housing. Next slide. Like Shelby said, you call 211 and press option 3 and you will be given to our core outreach dispatch line, and where they will dispatch you to a team. Like I said, Walnut Creek has their own team, so all Walnut Creek crises would go through there. We offer emergency supplies, embankment support, linkage to benefits, ID wage waivers, transportation when needed, linkage to behavioral health, as well as bringing healthcare for the homeless to Walnut Creek, direct placements into shelter and warming centers. And we also are the main linkage for Delta Landing, which is in Pittsburgh. Anything that you would need to do to get a hold of us, you can, like I said, call 211, or you can visit our website or go to our email address, core@cchealth.org. And I thank you for having me.
Thank you for that great work. Next, Erica Vanderbrand. She is our new director with the City of Walnut Creek's Community Development Department. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today amongst this group for this very important work that everyone does. You'll hear from my colleagues a little bit later in the PD about all the work that they do with the HOP program, but what the Community Development Department does is, on behalf of the city, while we don't provide direct services, we do provide funding with council, through council support for the support services and for housing. And so what I mean by that specifically is that there's funding that goes to providing affordable housing in the community, as well as people try to go from their journey of being unhoused to being housed, to provide them with support services, so helping help fund core, the Trinity Center, job training opportunities, etc. I think the other thing too is we all know that there's a very significant housing affordability challenge in this whole state, and so most recently we have our draft housing element update that is currently out for discussion and comment. So those are the kinds of things that we do to try and help support the community. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Next up, Trinity Center, Leslie Gleason, Executive Director.
Good evening, and we are so glad to be here tonight and proud and grateful to be part of the Walnut Creek community, which is unfailing in its support and dedication to having informed, compassionate, and concrete solutions to address our unhoused neighbors. At Trinity Center, we are both a place and a passion. We're literally a place right up the street, up on Trinity Avenue, where people who are living unsheltered or unhoused can come and access basic services, the things you and I take for granted: a warm shower, the ability to do your laundry, breakfast, a cup of coffee, and a nice smile. And then once your basics are taken care of at Trinity Center, that's where our passion comes in. We're passionate about being a doorway to opportunity so that people not only feel like they're worthy again, but they can chart a pathway forward and back out of the trauma and the difficulty of being homeless. So we are both a place and a passion. We offer that through basic services, case management. We focus on substance use disorder, which you'll hear is a part of the elements of what leads to or can result from the trauma of homelessness, and providing concrete assistance to people when they get rehoused so that they can keep that housing that they've worked so hard to re-achieve. And during the evenings in the winter, we offer an overnight shelter in collaboration with the city so that people have a safe place to be during those cold, wet winter months. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Of course, Trinity Center holds a special place in my heart, so I will disclose that. Next, Sheila Aceves, the Executive Director from Loaves and Fishes. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Molly. Loaves and Fishes of Contra Costa has 5 dining rooms throughout the county, and one of them is located at Trinity Center, who's a fantastic partner of ours. We provide hot, nutritious meals to anyone that needs them in our dining rooms, and in August we'll also be launching a mobile truck that will be going to Delta Landing and some other projects to provide hot meals to people in need there. We also have a culinary school where we train people who are aspiring to work anywhere in the hospitality industry for 12 weeks, and that's a free program. And that is how we provide services to this community.
Thank you. And then the topic of our focus today, the Walnut Creek Police Department. As we all know, one of the most important community resources we have is the Walnut Creek Police Department, whose mission is protect and serve the community through professional conduct and proactive enforcement of the law. Among the many other services provided, they have created this dedicated homeless outreach program. It allows that team to become experts and address a multitude of issues that are related to quality of life and public safety, as well as provide referrals to needed services. So with that intro, I'd like to welcome the HOP team to tell us more about their great programs. I think there's one slide you have to skip over before yours. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sergeant Silva with the Walnut Creek Police Department. I am the supervisor of these two officers here, Officer Adamson and Officer Cheney. They are the ones that are boots on the ground every day. Just a little backstory, I was one of the first two homeless outreach officers for the police department. We got, excuse me, kind of sidestepped with the COVID thing, and then we got back into it. So very excited to be here, very excited the program's going back together, and I'm very excited that we're all here together. And thank you, everybody, for joining us via Zoom as well. Created this little PowerPoint for you all. Yes, I made up the curtains. So just a couple of commonly asked questions that we run into. Some of these are tailored towards businesses, some are tailored towards just regular people that visit the city and or citizens of the community. So regarding business owners, what do I do if a homeless person is camped out in front of my business when I open up for the day? So what we always tell everybody is, if you're not comfortable, don't approach them. If you're comfortable, ask them to move. Typically, they will get up and they will move for you. But always call the police department, non-emergency number, if you need help, and we'll come over there and we'll check on them, make sure they got the services they need. In general, what do I do if a homeless person approaches me while I'm walking downtown or approaching or entering a business? A lot of these answers are going to be about the same. If you're not comfortable, don't approach them. If you're comfortable, approach them. Ask them if they need anything. We don't typically like to tell them, we don't like to give out money. We offer them food, clothing, or water. Again, for the business owners, what do I do if a homeless person approaches me at the end of my shift when I'm locking up? It's the same thing. We always say, safety equals distance. So just stay away from them. Just, go around, mind your business. We don't typically have a lot of problems with any kind of violence towards business owners or community members. So don't worry too much about it. Just act normal. Just walk by, treat them like anybody else. We'll talk a little about encampments. So what do I do if I come across or know of an encampment? Don't approach it. Encampments are their homes. They protect their encampments like they are their actual house. So again, call the non-emergency number and our officers will go out there and take care of it. Unfortunately, homeless people and or transients are known to carry weapons. So just, again, don't approach the encampments. Let us know where they are. Try to give us a good description of it and where its location is, and we'll go take care of it. So what do I do if a homeless person genuinely asks you for help while performing your duties at work or otherwise? And again, it's going to be repetitive. It's the same answer. If they generally want help, have them call 211, as we've discussed earlier. Direct them to the Trinity Center. It's very easy to find. There's also the Concord shelter that we've had to use a couple times. Check on them, see if they need any kind of mental health services. Do they need food or water? Again, but try not to give them money if you can help it, because it typically does not go towards food or clothing. And again, reach out to the core unit by dialing 211 or the Trinity Center. So typical things that you should report. Obviously, homelessness is not a crime, but there are things that they engage in. So some of the top crimes that we'd like you guys to kind of focus on is aggressive panhandling. Panhandling alone is not illegal, but aggressive panhandling is where you feel for fear of your safety to go into a business. That's not okay. So call the police department so we can go over there and kind of curb it for you, take care of it. Trespassing and camping is illegal. Consuming alcohol or being intoxicated in public also is illegal. And then some of their behaviors, the fighting, the obstructing sidewalks, yelling at patrons as they approach businesses, and then just obviously disturbing the peace. Unreasonable noise, using offensive words, behaving in a threatening manner. Just call the non-emergency number, we'll show up and we'll take care of it and make sure they get all the services that they need. So some of our suggestions: talk to your outreach officers, which is these two, or you can go through us. There'll be some email addresses that we'll leave up on the board for you guys if you guys want to take a screenshot of it. And again, safe practice equals distance. Don't offer any money. Do not permit anyone to camp or loiter on private property. Post your property with proper signage such as no trespassing and/or no loitering signs. This is more for business. Don't allow people to store shopping carts, bedding, or other personal belongings on your private property because it'll keep growing. For business owners, restrict access to sidewalk overhangs, alcoves, or other areas protected from inclement weather. Lock or remove handles from water spigots. Keep trash dumpsters locked when not being filled or emptied so items cannot be removed. And then secure outdoor storage sheds and or containers. They end up turning those into homes, so just make sure you keep any storage containers or sheds that you have locked up. And always turn off exterior power outlets. Lock gates after hours. Install motion-activated exterior lighting or video surveillance cameras for after hours. Trim landscaping to eliminate hiding places. And then canopies of mature trees should be maintained at least 8 feet above the ground so they don't try to build encampments inside the bushes. Keep your property free of trash, litter, and junk, etc. So if you have any questions on what to do, call the Walnut Creek Police Department. That's what we're here for. And if you guys want to take a screenshot of that or however you guys want to do it, those are our contacts. This is my email, Officer Addison, Officer Cheney. 211 is up there for core, and that's the Trinity number. They work Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And that's the end of my presentation.
Sergeant Silva, and I know Officers Cheney and Adamson, you guys do great work. This is great information and advice for our business owners and our property owners. And as we all know, many of the homeless in our community are really just looking for help or a hand up. And I'm sure you have many stories to tell. Can you share some of the successes your team has experienced?
Yes, good evening, everybody. So we do have some success stories that we want to share with you guys, and these are just a few. The first one, the female subject was in crisis multiple times a day, calling police for mental health issues related to homelessness. After a few calls for service involving this female subject and the HOP team, she accepted services and received treatment for her mental health. She was able to eventually get housing at the Trinity Center with the help from all involved, too. So.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate the support. One gentleman we're going to talk about, he every day he was creating a ton of calls for service. He was getting drunk downtown, causing issues. He got trespassed from just about every coffee shop you can think of in the city, and there's a lot of them. We just kept working with him, kept trying to, every day we'd come in contact with him. We'd try to get him back in life, back into a contributing member of society. We ended up helping him create a job resume. We proofread it, helped him get a job, and now he's actually living back with his family. So we rarely ever see him. If we do, he's just walking around town. He would walk right past you. You'd never even notice that he was homeless at one point. So I do badly.
Another one, male subject was generating a few calls for service on the north end of the city, so by Treat and Gary. After being contacted by HOP multiple times, he decided to get help. And after talking to him today, you wouldn't even recognize that he was homeless at one point. He actually did so good for himself and ended up going to the library to build a resume and get a job here in the city. So yeah, he's grateful for that, and he's grateful for meeting us in the HOP team.
Another individual, he was living and sleeping near Civic Park. His big hangup was that he could not move forward in life without his ID. So with the help of the Trinity Center, we got a form for him. We actually drove him to the DMV, walked him up, and literally helped him get his ID so he's able to get all of the services that he needs in terms of help from the government and stuff. So now he told us that his experience with HOP and Walnut Creek Police was the best police contact he's ever had in his entire life. Every single time we see him now, we make sure we go out of our way, say hi to him. He comes up and approaches us. He calls us pretty regularly and just asks for advice on how he can continue improving and striving to be the best he can be. So, and that's it. We have more, but we'll move on.
Well, I love that you have so many that you can't fit them all in. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those stories. So I think we are now to the Q&A section, so you can move to the slide where we describe the logistics. So the logistics are that we have been getting some questions online, and we also invite those of you in the room to submit your questions. We have some cards and an able assistant who can take your questions. And then my buddy Meredith here is going to pass them down to me, and I'm going to hope I ask the right person to answer them. So if I get the wrong person, you'll help me out, right? So the first question from the online team is asking the HOP team, what did the police do when they're called to an encampment, and specifically, are the campers arrested?
So when we get calls regarding encampments, we generally will post them. It depends if it's on private or public property. If it's private property, then we'll work with the property owner and figure out how they want to go about proceeding with it. When it comes to public property such as Civic Park and people camping in Civic Park, there's no camping at Civic Park, so we ask them to move along. Our goal is not to just go out and arrest people. Obviously, we're here to try to assist people and get them resources if they need it. So our goal is not to go out there and just arrest them. So camping isn't illegal. Well, depends where they are. But what we'll do is we'll post it for a 72-hour cleanup. We'll give them 72 hours, and generally it's a little bit more time than 72 hours, just because when we post it, then we have to work with either city staff or Caltrans, and we have to work on getting it cleaned up. So sometimes it's 72 hours, sometimes it's a week or maybe a little bit longer. But we give them adequate amount of time. We actually try to help them clean up their encampment. We'll provide them with plenty of garbage bags that they need to help pack all their belongings up. And then we try to get them the time and then ask them to move along.
Great, good information. Do I have any other questions in the room? I got one.
And if you ever do call to call in regarding an encampment, please be patient with us and be patient with the city and all the organizations. We can't get things done overnight. It doesn't happen that fast. So if you call regarding an encampment, let's say on the side of the freeway, side of the road, up in the bushes, just know that we will get out there and we will get it resolved. It just is going to take a little bit of time.
Great, thank you. So the next question is for a demographer here, and I'm not sure who will know this, but can we answer the number, how many people in Walnut Creek are homeless? Donna, I don't know if you want to take that one? Or do you know, Leslie?
I think Leslie would be the best one to answer that one.
It really matters how you count. Our county does twice every year an annual point-in-time count. So we can look to dozens or hundreds of people in a particular jurisdiction on a particular night. But what really makes a difference is the flow of people. At any one point in time, it's a certain number. But over the course of a year, it's 3 or 4 times that number. And it's a combination of adults, who we serve primarily at Trinity Center, and families with minor children. It's also a combination of people living in their cars or living doubled or tripled up, not all of whom are considered literally homeless, but they're as unstably housed as you might imagine. At Trinity Center, we serve on the order of 1,100, 1,200 people a year, distinct individuals who come once or come every day. And we do draw from the wider community because we're happily right on the BART line, but it's not so much always the number of people, it's what we are doing to assist. Whether it's a small number, whether it's one person, that's still a tragedy in our community, or hundreds of people. And I think this team together is doing an amazing job of treating each individual like they matter more than anything else. And you're hearing the success stories when we take that approach.
Do you mind if I touch on that really quick?
Please.
I'd actually just like to point out how successful Trinity Center is, especially in the Bay Area. We have individuals that my partner and I, we contact on a daily basis who literally wake up, they get on the first BART train, come to Walnut Creek, go to Trinity Center, utilize the resources all day, get back on BART, and go back to wherever they're staying. So we have people who literally come to the city just to utilize Trinity Center. So thank you, guys.
Great, the questions are coming in fast and furious now. So the next one, I think, Leslie, is for you as well. How did the Safe Parking Pilot Program go?
The Safe Parking Pilot Program started in October of 2019, just before COVID, and together with funding from the city and some other private donations, Trinity Center was able to operate that program in collaboration with St. John Vianney Catholic Church till June of 2020. It operated very well. It just didn't serve a large number of people. But the people it served, it made such a difference for them. The 8 to 10 people who were there each night were largely women, largely working women, who were then able to, because they got a good night's sleep and could access a restroom in the morning, were then able to go on to jobs and come back again at night instead of having to stay up all night worrying if they were going to get knocked on the window or worse. So it worked very well. It was more costly per person than we might have wanted. We think there are ways that we can do the program and serve the same number of people for cheaper or more people. So we would like to still have that in Walnut Creek as a resource, but it has not been operational since June of 2020. COVID also made a difference with that. When we were ready to start going again, it was the time everybody was in lockdown. But it's a successful model. Other communities are doing safe parking programs quite effectively. So it could definitely be part of our toolkit here in Walnut Creek. Oh, I should also say that it was the Walnut Creek Police came through every night that program operated, and never once during its operation were there any complaints or concerns.
Thank you. Sheila, this one's for you. What are the requirements for someone to access food from Loaves and Fishes?
There aren't any barriers to coming and accessing food at Loaves and Fishes. At Trinity Center, there is a check-in process that everyone goes through who enters the building. But other than that, anyone can come and access our services.
Great, thank you. Sergeant Silva, I'll toss this to your team. Why are there certain homeless people that we see every day hanging out allowed to stay on the streets?
Well, that's kind of a trick question, but again, homelessness is not a crime. There's nothing illegal about being homeless on the street. So unless they're doing anything wrong, I mean, we're not gonna go, contact them unless they look like they need help. But again, these guys run around this entire city, just the two of them, trying to contact everybody they can at any given moment. So from 1 minute they're up at North Main and Geary talking to 20 different people, and then they're down here over, by California Newell talking to a couple more people. So again, it's not illegal to be homeless. So to just walk around on the streets, again, like he touched on, they come here on BART to use the Trinity Center. They know it's a fantastic facility. So that's probably where they're seeing most of them. Again, it's kind of a loaded question on why they're walking around.
And I don't know who asked the question. I'm assuming you're talking about seeing the regular faces over and over again. There's a reason you all live in this city. It's a beautiful place. If I was homeless, I'd probably want to live here as well. So there's a lot that Walnut Creek offers for individuals. The weather's great. It's a beautiful community. And the community members support the homeless people a lot. So you're going to see a lot of regular people here. Luckily, in Walnut Creek, I feel like we're pretty fortunate. Our homeless population, the ones that have been here for years, a lot of them are actually great people. They're not out here. They're not the ones committing crimes, breaking into people's cars or businesses and stuff like that. They just kind of mind their own business. You just see them because some of them do stick out a little bit more than others.
Thank you. The next question is about housing, and there are several parts of it. What housing is available? What does someone do to get on the list to get it? Are there income requirements? Is that something for 211, or do you want to take it, Leslie? Shelby?
Sure, no problem. That's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of ways you can access housing in our community. One of the ways that you might be referring to, it sounds like, is affordable housing. So there's lots of affordable housing developers in our community, lots of wait lists. So we oftentimes have people go to those if they're trying to access, income-based housing. But if you're talking specifically about housing through our continuum of care, through coordinated entry, which I talked a little bit about, those folks, they get assessed, housing assessment through those access points that I was talking about at Trinity Center, where Leslie works, as well as our core teams. They get housing assessments and get put on a list for housing. We try to be really realistic and clear up front to set expectations around the availability of housing. We don't have a lot of permanent housing options in our community, so we do try to look for other ways to place folks, but that's kind of a general gist of how people get connected to housing.
Great, thank you. Here's a question for the city of Walnut Creek. Do you want to take a stab at it? Are you aware of funding to build housing for those with a serious mental illness? The initials are BHCIP. Behavioral Health CIP. Yes?
Behavioral Health Continuum Infrastructure
Continuum Infrastructure Program. Thank you.
2.2 billion that Governor Newsom has allowed, and our county.
The speaker in the room is saying that this is part of Governor Newsom's work, so it's hard for people to hear you. So thank you for speaking up. Is that something that's on your radar?
So thank you very much for making sure that it's on my radar personally. I have an excuse that this is now month 2 that I've been in the role here, and but I appreciate you bringing that forward, and I'll share that with the staff and to see what opportunities are there.
I was hoping that you would work in partnership with Trinity Center to get these fundings. Our county has a great opportunity to get this money, but we need the cities and the nonprofit providers and even for-profit providers to work together to get this funding.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure how to translate that for those online. Do we have a mic?
There we go.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is an unprecedented and historic opportunity for all those with a serious mental illness that do not fall within the H3, the health, housing, and homelessness. These are people who need more. And there is this opportunity. Our county needs to develop the partnerships. I believe they are very willing to develop the partnerships, but it takes advocates such as me, families like mine, that need to get out there and get this. Time is running out. There's round 5 and round 6, and we want to make sure that you know about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Goes to Sergeant Silva, the question.
So, all right, I'm not quite sure what to do with this business card. Oh, okay. So I'll make sure that Sergeant Silva gets it for you. Is that what you want? Okay, great. All right, question. Donna's hand is up. She may want to speak.
Thank you. It takes a long time to get to me, but I really just want to again urge people to come to the task force. What we're doing tonight, raising issues, raising potential solutions, are what we do on a regular basis. And I invite you to come and be part of our task force. You don't have to come every month, or you don't have to work on a committee all the time, but your presence and your experience and your ideas are very valuable for us as we go forward with seeking solutions. Someone asked, well, what about housing? Honestly, there is not enough. So if someone goes into Trinity Center, they work with the HOP team, and they say, in the county, I have no place to go. Quite often, there is no place to go. There are long waiting lists everywhere. There are not enough shelter beds. There's not enough affordable housing. And so that's why we work together as a village to try to find these solutions. And I know the city, I have to say that the city of Walnut Creek is one of the best cities I've ever worked with. Not that I've worked with a ton, but I've worked with some in helping us find these solutions. And so I encourage you to be part of this task force. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. So I have a couple of questions for the HOP team. So the first one is, do you offer safety checks for nonprofit programs serving in the community? And if so, what's the protocol?
All three of us aren't really sure what they're asking.
Not sure what the where'd that microphone go? That's okay. We want to hear the questions, so thank you. Mark's doing a great job.
All right. Question was regarding safety checks. So what you guys were doing for the safe parking program, being able to do a sweep during, the nonprofit functioning, if you offer that for other nonprofits, or if it was just particular to that program.
Do you mean like doing a walkthrough of your building, like periodically throughout the day?
No, not necessarily. We're more of a drop-in center.
Okay.
So we do outreach in different communities, and we don't necessarily always have security because security is pretty expensive. You know, the retired police officers can be quite pricey. I don't blame them, but we definitely need a presence. We're largely females. And like you said, we're dealing with a population that, you know, some may suffer from mental health, some may have needles or, you know, weapons, and just having a presence of the police around just to assist us to make sure that things are copacetic.
If you'd like, you can send me an email, and then when you guys are in the city, we can always stop by. I can't be there my entire shift, my partner and I. However, we are more than welcome to stop by and at least have a presence, and so people do know that we're around. We periodically go up to Trinity Center just to say hi. We're not there to get anyone in trouble or anything like that. It's just so that people see us and we're around and try to develop those relationships. So if you ever need us to come around and kind of say hi and get to know people, we're more than happy to do that.
That would be great. And she has a follow-up question.
Meredith, can you put the contact information slide back up? A couple people have asked for that, so we can just have that showing. Thank you. You have a follow-up question? The follow-up question on the card is, does Walnut Creek Police Department work with other cities with regard to homelessness?
Yeah, so Pleasant Hill, we're in pretty close contact with the Pleasant Hill. We're the only city around here that has 2 officers doing the homeless outreach. So Pleasant Hill has 1 officer, Martinez has 1 officer. Walnut Creek, our staffing, we are still a little short, but we are doing better than most. So those officers who are homeless officers in other cities, they're kind of getting pulled to do other tasks. But we do all meet and we do try to communicate and share information along. People who are homeless in Walnut Creek will often visit Pleasant Hill or Martinez, Concord. So we do try to work with the other police departments.
Thank you. And is there special training to become a HOP officer?
Compassion. You just have to have compassion and want to make a difference. Firm and compassionate.
And the last police question I have, at least on my desk right now, I'm sure more will come. Do you do assessments in conjunction with coordinated entry with their team?
Not necessarily. We will provide our feedback. So if we come across someone and we're like, they're really trying to make a difference in their life, they're great people, we'll definitely try to pass that information along. We'll do the same with Trinity Center. But we won't do an assessment and say, this person deserves a housing over that person.
And if I could follow up, what they might be referring to is the centralized assessment process, which is part of the county's coordinated entry system. So someone may engage with the HOP team, come to Trinity Center, start to receive services through us, and then we would engage in this conversation with them, which is the assessment. The information in the assessment is then in an HMIS database. Too many letters, I know. And that's how people can start to access the county-based resources. So the assessment is all the factors that go into and result from the experience of homelessness. And we would perform it at Trinity Center, or any of the other homeless service providers in the county can do it as well. So that might be what they're talking about. We also at Trinity Center can provide homelessness certification if that's necessary for someone applying to a particular kind of housing. But if what the question was about was like wellness checks for people on the street, absolutely. These guys, if we have a concern about somebody, but they're not at Trinity Center, they'll connect with that person and try to make sure that they're okay or get them where they can be okay.
And thanks, Leslie, and while you have your mask off, where do clients go after getting services from Trinity Center?
You mean when we close?
No, I don't. I think after they've completed services, but that's a continuum that may or may not ever end.
Well, as Donna pointed out, there aren't always enough safe overnight resources. So when people leave Trinity Center, sometimes they're staying in their car, sometimes they're couch surfing, sometimes they are finding a place to tuck away and stay safe overnight. You never really end being a Trinity Center member because you can encounter us when you're perhaps about to become homeless, and we're trying to stave that off by making sure you have the basics you need so you can focus on keeping your housing. Or if you're literally homeless, we're a community that you're always part of. And then when you become rehoused, because that does happen, you're still part of the Trinity Center community, and they come back because people have formed friendships and connections and trusting relationships at Trinity Center. And we love when that happens, because then the people who are feeling like, oh, I'm never going to get out of this situation, can see other people who have been through what they're going through and have gotten out of it. So we are always part of the community. So you never really end being a Trinity Center member.
True. And another one for you, what made up the most cost of the safe parking program? Why was it so expensive?
Honestly, the largest cost was the security, the professional security. It was a new pilot program. Everybody wanted it to be successful, and for there to be a presence in case anything untoward did happen, which didn't, but that was a large cost driver. Yeah, so.
Thank you. So I think this is for the HOP team. A former Contra Costa Mental Health Commissioner asks, are there times when a 5150 is necessary? What's the process? How often does this occur? And so for those of you who are not familiar with what a 5150, being a retired nurse, I can answer that. It is a involuntary hold that's put on someone who is at risk of harming themselves or others. So how often does that come up with for your team?
It's a case-by-case basis. So my partner and I, every day, if we see someone who is homeless, we just get out of the car and we go talk to them. Doesn't mean they're breaking the law. We offer them water, stuff like that. We kind of do an evaluation on everybody. Now, evaluation isn't going through a series of questions or anything like that, like a clinician would. But if someone seems that they're gravely disabled, danger to themselves or danger to others, then we will put them on a 5150 hold. But while we're doing the assessment, we're trying to make sure that it's not, their behavior isn't because of narcotics or controlled substance. The last thing I ever want to do is put someone in the hospital or put someone in jail when in reality they should be going to the hospital or they should be going to jail. Someone who's on drugs doesn't need to be going to the hospital for a mental health issue, but someone who has a mental health issue should not be going to jail because they're not going to get the treatment they need. So we do the assessments, and we assess people all the time. Doesn't mean we necessarily put someone on a 5150 hold every single day.
Great, thank you. So now the group is going to have to help me decide who might want to answer this. Why aren't there regionally sanctioned camps? If land and buildings sit idle, could sanctioned camps be established? Who wants to take that one on? We don't know how to answer it, huh?
So I can take a stab.
Okay, great. Thanks, Donna.
Yeah, so it isn't that we haven't looked at sanctioned camps and camps, places for people where they can put tents. There are a lot of obstacles with that. Many people think that a camp is a solution. It's really not. More housing, supportive housing is the solution to ending homelessness. So we're not really want to encourage camps while they may not be illegal, but we try really hard to get people housed, not in a tent. And the other thing is there are a lot of jurisdictions. So with the task force, we work primarily on Walnut Creek issues, but we do have members that are countywide. So we work with the county's services as well. And there has been a lot of discussion about what if we were to be a regional task force, because it takes a lot of coordination and it takes money, takes funding. There are sanitation issues. There are emergency, medical, mental health, and public safety issues. And if I were to ask you if you would like to have one of these regional encampments in your neighborhood, I suspect the answer would be no, thank you. So location is extremely hard and difficult. I don't think we should stop thinking about that, but my feedback is that's a very difficult thing to do.
Thanks, Donna. And Shelby has her hand raised.
Thanks, Molly. And thanks, Donna. I just want to piggyback on some of the things you said about encampments. There is a sanctioned encampment in Martinez called Camp Hope that's been run for a while now by a local group. Oftentimes those encampments, were not funded by HUD or state dollars even, but did want to highlight that the city of Richmond did get an encampment resolution grant. They got about $4.5 million to help with an encampment in the Castro area. So just wanted to highlight that there is some work, sounds like, happening at the local level to help with some of those encampments.
Thank you for reminding me to turn on my mic. Thank you, Shelby. And Donna, I'm going to pass this one to you. Please explain affordable supportive housing and St. Paul's Commons as a successful example.
Oh, well, thank you for passing that to me. So I have a lot to say about that, but
I knew you did.
When we formed Trinity Center in the very beginning, we realized that it would be a good thing to do to provide people with day services, but what they really need was housing. And so a small group of us, including the then rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church, and I and a few other people went to the board of St. Paul's, it's called the vestry, and we proposed that we take the building that we were operating out of, which was very old and falling down, and we replace it with a new day center and affordable apartments. So we spent a couple of years talking about it. We spent a lot of time with the city, a lot of time with potential funders and developers. And we, over the course of 2 years, we were able to put together a proposal with Resources for Community Development as the developer. And also we worked with the county housing authority to be able to provide some vouchers for housing. So it took us all total probably 6 years to build. It took, just as we were about getting ready to lease up and house people, COVID hit. And so there was a big delay because of COVID. But I really want to do a shout out to RCD, to their management company, John Stewart, to the county, and to Trinity Center for their perseverance, because they were able to house, to lease up 44 units. There's more than 44 people there. Some are studio units, some are one bedrooms. However, half of them are eligible for services through Trinity Center. So they get counseling, they get support. It's a very difficult thing if you've been living on the street for any length of time to be all of a sudden moved into an apartment, or, and now all of a sudden you have to get used to living inside again. And you have to be able to pay your rent, and you have to be able to cook and clean and all those things that you may have not been doing for a long time. And so it takes support. And there's also some re-education and some mental health, mild mental health kinds of things. There's when people live in camps, it's communal. So now all of a sudden I'm living in an apartment, a studio apartment, and I'm lonely. And so what I do is I go back to those camps. Well, St. Paul's Commons has a support staff, and they have a community room on site. And so then people are allowed to build friendships and have that community that they had in the camp. I am hoping I answered that question. If there's a part of it that I left out, please remind me.
No, I think you did a great job. The question was explain affordable supportive housing, and your example did it perfectly, but it's essentially they can afford to live there and they receive services while they're there so that they can retain that housing. So thank you. Another question for the HOP team. Do police have social work training? They seem to encounter many people experiencing mental health crises.
We have, the three of us have attended training geared specifically for homeless individuals. I wouldn't say we have training as extensive as social workers per se, but we have received formal training for dealing with people who are experiencing homelessness. Then the class was put on by social workers in Nevada County through a program called the Harmony House, very similar to Trinity Center. So they put the training on for us.
And we do work directly with the social workers from the different hospitals in the city too, or their specific social worker that they have. We'll get a hold of them and get them connected.
Great. So I've been saving this great question for a pause here, and I see people scribbling, so I'll read this one out. An attendee commends this group for the wonderful services set up in this city. They live in Danville and are interested to learn about providing services at their church. Where to start? I'm going to throw that open.
Well, we at Trinity Center are very proud of the history we have of starting small and growing from there. So we are happy to be in an advisory way with you. And you can help learn. You can learn from some of our history. Donna is our founding director, and she's always available to help that process as well. But we're happy to help in any way we can.
Yeah, I think any member of the task force would be, so feel free to reach out to the task force too. So. Are there other questions that I'm missing? Hand went up, one's coming. All right. Thank you. It's a comment. St. Paul's used MHSA funding. Now let us use BHCIP. Yes. Message received. How much does it cost to live at St. Paul's Commons? It's a sliding scale depending on income and depending on program. So.
Right, that's pretty much the answer. The way that affordable housing often works is that the developers have to cobble together a lot of public funds, and each of those funds have different requirements for who can live there, how the rent is determined. So it's going to be different for different people living at St. Paul's Commons, but the goal is always to keep it affordable. So that affordable could mean it's the same basic rent for people in an income tier. It could mean, as people are used to thinking about the Section 8 program, where it's based on a percentage of your income. But income is not supposed to be the obstacle. As long as people can afford to pay it, live in the community, then it's supposed to be permanent, and that's really the goal. And MHSA, the reference was Mental Health Services Act funding, which is also part of what has gone into St. Paul's Commons as well. But yes, there definitely could be more housing that meets the particular needs of people with both mild or severe mental health illnesses, because the tragedy of them on our streets is just enormous, and you all are encountering it every day as well. So.
Thank you, Leslie. So the question well seems to be drying up. Any other questions? One more's coming. Online, thank you.
No, I have one while we're waiting, and I know that the city and the council had seen the need for obviously homeless services throughout the pandemic, and the council supported a full-time core team and a full-time HOP team. And maybe for the benefit of all of us, you could kind of explain, how you do the same thing or how you do different things and how you work together to kind of help the homeless on a daily basis.
Well, again, we work with all the entities that we have. We work with Public Works, we work with CORE, we work with Trinity Center, we work with social workers, we work with Concord Shelter, we work with different agencies around the area. We work with Caltrans, we work with CHP, Pleasant Hill, Martinez, Concord. We work with all these different agencies and entities to kind of stay on the same page and see what works for us, what works for them, and then we get together. To be honest with you, we used to have meetings monthly with different police agencies, but then the pandemic hit, and again, we got kind of derailed, so hopefully we can start that back up again.
So thank you for that, Sergeant Silva. And I think that is a good idea to have the regional police departments meet up and kind of share notes. It's a very, is it accurate to say that it's pretty similar what the HOP team is doing and what the core team is doing, but it allows you to reach more people in terms of trying to connect homeless with services? Is that essentially the function of both?
Yes, and because we have the Trinity Center, more homeless people come to our city. So we engage with more homeless people in Walnut Creek than other cities do. And we have more services, so we offer them more service. We have this team that goes out there, they go to Trinity Center, they have water, sometimes they have food, and they always have clean clothes. So when you run across somebody who's homeless and they've slept out in the cold, we give them socks, we give them, sweatpants, sweatshirts, so it's a very special team that we've built here. And I don't think any other agency can emulate it.
And if I could
Molly,
add.
Lisa has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback off this a little bit. So CORE works with the HOP team side by side as well. We are also our Walnut Creek team are also the ones that do the referrals for the warming center. That is on a daily nighttime. They call 211. We're able to pick up from Trinity Center and bring them to the warming center. We also provide the healthcare for the homeless, bringing them into Walnut Creek, as well as the mobile crisis team to help with the mental health issues. We also are just like Trinity, able to go meet people in their encampments and offer the vulnerability assessment to help them get into permanent supported housing as well.
And the word that you keep using is team. So all of the nonprofits and the homeless agencies and food and clothing, we all work together. It takes a village, but in this case, a team. And I'm so proud of everybody that's doing this work.
Did you want to add to that, Leslie, or was that what you were going to say?
No, Donna definitely capped it off, the team, and we all work together. Someone may first encounter the HOP team, and then they connect with Trinity Center, and they come to Trinity Center, and we connect them with the core team. It's a place where everybody can get access to the services they need because we're talking with each other. You guys can't be everywhere, and Trinity Core can't be everywhere, but people can come to Trinity Center and wait for Core to get there and talk with them. And that relationship that we have with Core is really essential in accessing the county resources. So keeping that door open is very important.
If I could ask one follow-up question, then I've heard from some business owners and residents that who do they contact on weekends when the core team or the HOP team might not be out and about in town?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I know this might be out of your control, but a 4-person HOP team, if we get funding for 4 people, would be phenomenal. So we could have 2 people on the front half, 2 people on the back half. Sorry, Captain. But in reality,
We're working on that. We got
every
sales tax measure coming in.
every officer in Walnut Creek knows how to professionally deal with people who are homeless. So if you call on the weekend, you're still going to get very professional officers who will do it. The luxury that my partner and I have is we can spend 2 hours with one individual. We don't have a bunch of calls that we have to go to. So we can spend as much time as we need to help someone get them the services they need. So on the weekend, they might not get that same level of treatment. But if we have a good working relationship with all of our coworkers. So if they come across someone like, hey, we've had a lot of calls regarding this individual, this is where they hang out, then first thing Monday morning when we start our shift, we're going to go out there and try to contact that individual and see what we can do. If it's an encampment that gets reported on the weekend, we'll get, my partner and I or my sergeant will get an email saying, hey, there's a new encampment set up here. Can you guys please go and check it out on Monday? So then first thing Monday morning, we go out there and we do that. So just because we're not there on the weekend doesn't mean we don't know about what happens with homeless people during the weekends.
Can I just say one add on to that? You guys are awesome. The task force, it is one of the issues that the task force is looking at. We know that when Trinity Center closes its doors, that many people are left without a place to go. And so we're trying to figure out what do we do after hours and what do we do on weekends. It isn't that we don't, it's one of those really, really difficult problems to solve because you need a place, you need money. I think it's solvable, but I think we still need more people to help us figure it out.
And Shelby, your hand is up. Thanks, Donna.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in CORE's availability on weekends. So they do have an evening team on Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. So less availability, but there are folks that are still there, just like the HOP team is talking about. So there are people who can take calls and dispatch out, just less people.
Yeah, and one of the notes I got passed is that Walnut Creek helps fund that. So it's a team effort, but it covers the whole county, so. All right, other questions? So we're getting some really nice comments here. Oops, I just put one away. I didn't mean to do that. Thank you to all who are serving the public on this issue. There are many employees working hard to resolve this intractable and sometimes dangerous problem, and we appreciate it. So that's very nice. So thank you all for your great attention and questions this evening. As we've all said several times, it takes a village, and it not only takes all of these members, but all of you. And we're going to put our slide back up for sort of what you can do next, because that's sort of the so what of this conversation. How can we all help and get involved? So you can join the task force. You can donate or volunteer at Trinity Center, or donate or volunteer at Loaves and Fishes. You can get involved in your local government. You can volunteer at many other organizations that exist in the area that are serving some aspect of services that are not represented here tonight. And here are our websites. I know a number of you have asked for the police emergency, non-emergency number, and we'll put that up one more time before we leave. But we thank you all and wish you all the best and a safe evening and safe trip home. And thank you all for your time and attention.